Hey, how the heck are you? Good to see you again.
Your name was? This is what this is all about.
Part of
right?
it, yeah. Part of it, this is part of it, and your solo record is part of it, and your studio lead out in Colorado is part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. I've been following Dan for a long time, since I'm being a fanboy right now, Giant, and before that, White Heart, and then all the crazy records and all that kind of stuff. And you guys know I worked for Jim, in the 80s and met Dan briefly back then, but he worked with my employer and obviously longtime friend James Tyler. And I came back to Tyler and I said to Jim, I said, hey, I understand why some of the sort of signature things we did, those guitar players went other places, but I said, why did you stop, using Dan's name on the Black Classic, this guitar? And he said, well, Dan moved to Nashville, and I just felt weird using Dan's name, which is, how cool is Jim, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't think that way.
Yeah.
They'll use your name well into where you ask them not to and stuff. But
no, that is very nice.
Yeah.
Give me one, just shut off my phone.
Oh, yeah. And remember, I called your brother, and I love all this kind of stuff. I want it to be natural. And I called your brother, and because I've known him pretty dang well, and from being a producer and me working at Line 6 and KRK, and I said, hey, blah, 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 we had this idea, we want to do the Yellow Classic. Yeah. And you called me the next morning, and remember what you said to me? Just, you were like, Rich, I'm up for whatever you guys want to do, but you need to tell Jim something for me today. And you explained to me about how you went to California.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the stories, some of it's pretty well documented. That was at that point. That was the only place for me.
Yeah,
we're looking at each other, right? We don't have to look at this guy, right?
Us. Yeah, totally. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it just seemed like the right thing. It was, and my wife and I were really young, so we didn't have anything to lose. And I was going out there, and it was the perfect kind of momentary time to come into Los Angeles, because basically the guy who got every bit of work, Steve Lukather, decided to have a band and started having a lot of success. So there's this humongous vacuum of space to be had. And so I went out there, and of course, everything Steve, that was what consumed me, and I loved the way he played. He affected me more than I could. I've thanked him a million times for it anyway. But in essence, I was Steve Lukather light. But that's a good way to get work, right? Yeah. And so and I wanted a guitar, and of course I looked at his guitar. Well, heck, that looks great. And so I went out.
I found a photo of that guitar, by the way.
Of Steve's guitar?
Yeah, no, that guitar that you must have seen with the black pickguard.
Yeah. Well, that's that's that guy back there. Yeah. And so I'm getting around to Jim. So basically, I got a Strat, and because I didn't have a really good Strat, got a really nice Strat, a nice 63, which it's taken me until I'm 64 to find out it's 64. But
when you're 64,
and I found out, and Jim's shop was in the back of Andy Brower's Rentals, and so. I couldn't use the original. Yeah. I needed a Wanger, I need a Floyd, and I need humbuckers. And I just said, "Can you do this?" Andy told me about this guy that does it. And basically I just put that's the most expensive thing. That was more expensive than my car at the time, that guitar. And I just gave it to him, and I said, Can you make this hot rodded and make me look like Steve Lukather? Yeah. And Jim very unassuming, and he did all that, and it I can't remember the timeline as how long it took him. He probably did it very quickly. Yeah. And
but he put the Floyd on, gutted it, put on the black pickguard.
Everything.
And remember we were talking about it when I was here, when I was first investigating that guitar. Yeah. And you showed me the back cover of the White Heart record. Yeah. And I looked at it, I was like, but damn, it has 3 switches in between the volume and the mid boost. Yeah. And you're like, I don't remember it ever changing. So I figured it out. I was talking to Andy Brower. I don't even know if I shared this with you. And he said, oh, yeah, no, that's mine. And I found pictures of Andy with that. So he must have had you checking that out while Jim was doing your mods. Yeah. And you probably said, yeah, do that. And you probably needed a tone. So, you know, and so that's why the switches were in, sideways.
Right. And whatever it was, that became my identity. And, or helped me carve out a somewhat identity, and
your tone.
It was the I think I must have played that guitar almost exclusively for 20 years.
Yeah.
I had other guitars, but it was like 98% of it was that guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those moments, and when you're going through it, you don't know how that's going to affect you. It's like everything in life. So it was, and then we had a relationship, and then he would build me guitars and service, and then he became Jim Tyler. He became James Tyler. So that the rest is history. But he was so sweet. Although I never got to ask him where my original pickups were, because he asked me, "Do you want these pickups?" And I, being the dummy that was, I said, "No." They might been nice to have.
I just realized they might be in
probably in the shop.
No, they might be in this green Strat that he put.
Yeah.
It was the one he built because he said it had old. I wonder if
there you go.
I'll have to check.
Smart guy. Yeah.
But and what's amazing is, so that's kind of how Jim ended up becoming a builder, is because he was taking your guitar or Coma guitar, and he took. He put the guts, the Anderson type bobbins and the guts into one of Luke's guitars that led to building Puffy. But he was like, he didn't even want to build guitars. His whole thing was, if I start with a body and a neck, I don't have to tear a guitar down to build it back up.
Right.
And then he would build these guitars with no name on it. And actually we have a guitar here, funny enough. Let's bust this out. This is one that you got around the same time as the yellow guitar, And Jim didn't want to put anything up here because, like when you first put your name on something, it feels weird. Like I can't even imagine Renken guitars.
Yeah.
That just sounds weird. Yeah. So Jim felt weird. And they're like, yeah, but you got to put something up there. So he liked this stationery of this like doctor that had the name all the way down the stationery. So he just put that across, and he thought it looked weird. So he threw Tyler in there. And that's what ultimately, became the headstock on the Studio Elite. But
I love that story, because from a guy who didn't want to put his name on a guitar, and then he did. Figured, I'll do it 6 times.
Well, it was the Art Deco thing. Yeah, exactly. No, and
he made that jump.
No, exactly. People kind of bust him for it. Yeah. But he's like, yeah, but to me, it wasn't my name. It was like this Art Deco vibe, where a repeating thing.
That guitar, by the way, is the neck on that. I haven't seen that guitar in probably 30 years, and that thing sounds great.
Dale Oliver owned this. I actually met Dale when he was playing for Stephen Curtis Chapman, and he had that guitar playing at some big arena. Yeah. Super fun. But one of the things I loved when you called me is you were like, Rich, look, whatever you guys want to do, because I can't repay Jim for that guitar. And I love that you were like, man, I put kids through college and paid mortgages.
Yeah. Oh, I thought, when we were talking about that, at first I thought, did I not pay him? Did I ditch him on paying?
No. Okay, I got you. He didn't. Yeah. We rarely did it. I mean, even like Mike and you, like if he got something back from you guys and he did some new thing, he might have got for free, but he would take like something he got back from Mike and then sell that to a Japanese guy, or somebody who loved Tyler and all that kind of stuff. So because people still call up and they're like, "Is that all you can do on that guitar?" Like, I'll help out somebody, and I'll be like, I drive a 2000 Monte Carlo, bro. Jim would always say, you don't get in this industry to get loaded, So
and good. I take your meaning now. The clarification. Yeah. That. I mean, that guitar. It's seriously. I mean, you hate to get too. You don't want to sit there and it's still a piece of wood, right?
Yeah.
But there's no doubt that the combination of that, as a 22-year-old kid, it really allowed me to do something at a certain time that has affected the rest of my life.
Right. You couldn't get on a guitar without all that mod stuff that Jim was doing. That really, he was the only one doing it in that early 80s, late 70s.
Well, and the fact that I could, you could rip, rock type guitar solos and parts on it, but then you could also back and get that clean sound, which it wasn't intentional. It was the idea back then was just to cut through the maze of MIDI keyboards.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had to have a sound that kind of existed everywhere and nowhere at once, and that did it. So
well, and the funny thing about that is that's come back.
Yes.
Because the kids are doing all this programming. And I had a young guy named Omar Fetty call me up. He's 22. He's got red hair and black nail polish. And he's like, hey, I think it's about time I get one of those Dann Huff guitars. And so I look him up, and he's got tracks with Justin Bieber, Lil Nas X, Kid Cudi with like 1 billion views on YouTube. And he comes in, and I thought he was going to come in with the hard sell. Gosh, I got these. Not at all. couldn't be kinder, super quiet. He played, and I'm showing him the stuff, and then I showed him parallel and the 2 pickups with 1 in parallel, and he just stopped playing. He goes, "Do you know how many plugins it takes me to sort of get there?" And then he said, "You know, Rich, I love the stuff I work on. It's not really my favorite. My favorite band is Giant. Dan is my favorite guitar player, and I hang out at the Baked Potato." And he's 22, but they're trying to fit guitar into those thick tracks, just like you guys did. Same thing with another cat named Jan Ozervan, plays for Charlie Puth, and Charlie was like, "Man, how do we got that guitar? What's that sound?" You know, which if you think about it, is the Billie Jean sound. Yes. Just extrapolate that into a clean part or a funky part. It's that series parallel thing. So, pretty fun.
Wow, that's nice.
But I came out last time when I brought you the prototype of this new Dann Huff original classic, and you were just getting started working on a solo record.
Indeed, yes, and it is finished. I'm glad to say. The hardest part was letting go, because I think it started out being a something that I wanted to reconnect with my musicality. My day job is a record producer, and never meant to get into that. And I consequently I never quit playing guitar, but I wasn't playing the guitar.
Yeah.
So between that, I got 5 grandsons now, and I'm not morbid, but I mean I'm not going to be here forever.
Right.
So it's like I'd like a little something for them to have, to know. They call me Papa, so Papa can live from that standpoint.
Right.
And then it took a life of its own, and I started writing music. The camera isn't showing this, but one of my dearest friends, Gordon Kennedy, sitting here, he and I grew up together playing guitar. It's like it could be a book, kind of what we went through. You know, in again, that was one of those things. We didn't know it when we were going through it, but we grew musically, fed each other, as it were. I mean, because we're very much similar in our passion for music, but we had different backgrounds. So we had this training ground. It was like a laboratory. We went to a school to play sports. We both played sports. Gordon was better than I was, but I was there for athletics. They had a horrible. They didn't have a music program at that point, but they had a guy that they wanted to build a music program, and he was kind and intuitive enough to know that they didn't have anything to offer 2 young guitar players. So he just said, if you keep your grades up, you can go and practice in the hallway during study break. That was the laboratory. Wow. We were in the 70s. This is when Blow by Blow and Wired and Room 335, Gordon was basically showing me everything Boston. Gordon had country roots because of his legendary father was a studio guitar player, Jerry Kennedy, and because of the production. So I was getting that from him, amongst other things. I just left out something. What was the other thing, Gordon, that you were way into at that time? Oh, Wayne Moss, Barefoot Jerry. I mean, all that, so that, and then I had my other side that I kind of brought to the table was Al Di Meola, Elegant Gypsy. Anyway, all this stuff, and it goes on and on and on, but you get the idea. So
yeah,
I started talking to the camera.
So Gordon Kennedy is sort of like your Steve Lukather or Mike Landau, because they went to high school together.
Yes, yeah.
And they would, when they were sophomores, they would make fun of a mutual friend of ours named Joey Braziler, who's like way up the food chain at Fender. You've met him before.
Joe, he worked for Ernie Brower.
They went to high school together. So they would kind of snicker, and they're like, one day he goes up to these 2 sophomores and says, "What's your guys' deal?" And he goes, "Well, you look like Joe Walsh, and we love your playing."
Nice.
But the same thing, high school, people that you hit it off with,
and you never. The enormity of that. If it's a good experience, well, even if it's a bad experience, it's
exactly.
So
yeah.
To round out the story, the record, I play. I finally got my fingers feeling kind of like my fingers, but in the guitar world right now, and it's like I'm a piker compared to some of these guys.
Yeah.
So it wasn't going to be a record that I would look foolish to try to compete.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be silly, and. Then it occurred to me, that's not why we do it anyway. Right. It's to have a voice and to speak with your voice.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a full circle record, hearkening back to all the music that Gordon and I grew up, loved playing. And it has all those it's hopefully it's not too close. I don't think so. I mean, I can just be myself.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a love letter to that.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And I just recorded it. It kind of took on its own life. I had a Rev amp that was brought to me, just a demo, and it ended up being the amp. It wasn't really thought out, and it just kind of emerged. And the hardest thing I will say, and I'll quit talking about it, was to let it go.
Yeah.
Because by nature, I think I played better than when I recorded it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's any more true.
People are excited about it, and I think I accidentally got you like talking on camera more. And I mean, you've created so much buzz with the community of people that have been following you for years. Yeah. With Mason coming out and my friend Session Solo guys in Omaha and stuff, and then you got on your Instagram. And,
that was because of my daughter.
Yeah, and people love to hear from you. That was something I had to learn when I was at Line 6. I was working with a corporate coach, and I would come in and tell him stories about meeting the edge or whatever. And he's like, "Why don't you share that on social media?" I'm like, "It feels like I'm bragging." And he's like, "No, just people, if they would love to sit with you, so just act like you're sitting with them," and you do that super well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that still feels a little foreign to me, but I suppose I'll do it for at least another 2 months. Just get this record out. Yeah. Thanks, but thanks for asking that.
Yeah. But we did this guitar. I got you a Sean Tubbs model. That was fun to bring over. I think when we brought the Rev amp, actually.
Yes.
And you plugged in, so that'll be on your record a little bit. You said, right?
Yes. And
then
this would I would say this,
sure.
If this new beautiful, I mean, the only thing wrong about this guitar is it's so pretty.
I know.
And it won't exist like this probably much longer than today.
Yeah.
I'll scrub it in, but it's I'm happy to say. Can I say a nice thing about the guitar?
Absolutely.
It sounds like I'm marketing it, but I'm really not. If people like it, they'll gravitate towards it. But it's I mean, that the 64 that I have is I mean, that's a thing, right?
Yeah, it's your home. It's
this is equal.
Yeah.
So how's that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you don't. It's.
I mean, you could say it because you're saying it. Yeah. If I say it, you said to me, you know what? I just like this one better. And I remember when I thought you were being you said it this way. You said there's virtues this has that your 64 doesn't.
Yes.
I thought that was cool. And then I'm packing it up, the prototype.
Right.
And he said, so like, are you gonna make me one? And I go, do you really want one? You go, yeah, because I like that better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, coming from you, it's like if I said that, it would sound like marketing, and it's not. Right. And it's not. That guitar is a killer guitar.
It's great.
I mean, but obviously Jim learned things, and there's things we do the way we connect the neck, and there's a resonance about it, and all this stuff. It launched from that, and Jim quickly, over 30 years learned and went into this, even though we're doing kind of the same vibe as that.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
And we miss Jim. It's like, man, he should be sitting here. And he wouldn't be sitting here.
He wouldn't, and he wouldn't.
No way.
He's a man. He was a man of few words.
Very few. Yeah. But I'm gonna miss him dearly. But gosh, there's that, and we built the Studio Elite white schmear that will.
Yes.
Next time you're in Colorado, you just gotta get somebody to snap some shots of you. But it was fun to share that little text that you.
That guitar
is killing me.
It snuck up on me. Well, I mean, enough to where a few minutes before we started rolling the you don't roll tape, you start the hard drive, right?
I like that. Yeah.
I was. It was definitely a nerdy moment, but I was showing Gordon a picture of my guitar, and I actually snapped a picture of it because I just love the guitar. I like the way it looks too. Yeah. I mean, it looks a little bit younger than I am.
No, but you remember when I shot you? Remember we did the yellow guitar and stuff, and we talked about it. And I'm like, what can I do for you? It's like we're just this little small guitar company. And you're like, I don't know, build me a guitar. Yeah. I said, okay, well, we're doing this thing, and I told you, and you said. And then I sent a picture of a white schmear. I said, and if you want one of our weird finishes, this one's kind of more grown up because it almost looks like marble. Yeah. Right? And you were like, that looks great. Yeah, send that.
But it's kind of, I mean, isn't that kind of like, because I was like Mike's guitars.
Yeah, it came from that. Psychedelic Vomit, that was the first one. Yeah. I was sanding a turquoise guitar down, and it was turquoise and silver and wood. And I said, this looks like something Mike would like. And Jim goes, he's coming in tomorrow. I left it on my bench, and Mike walks in. Oh, what is this? And then Jim and him added the other colors.
Does he still talk like that to you?
Oh, yeah, he totally. Yeah.
When I got,
he's the best.
A funny thing, when I got out to, it's like I just got off the boat, when I was that young coming out to L.A. And I was, those guys grew up quicker. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. He and Steve, it's like, it was like, not Ronnie Howard as the director, but it was like Opie.
Yeah.
Opie goes to Hollywood. I swear to God, because I looked at, see, we would all kind of sit. I learned a lot sitting next to Mike for years, but we would have our little pedal boards sitting there together, and mine would say delay and distortion or whatever, and his, I don't even care. It was Steve's was more pornographic, right?
Yeah.
Mike's was less, but it was like what, like this.
It was like shenanigans, or it would be like, I forget. It was all those fun words like
yes. So that's right. That was
the schmo or whatever.
It all made sense. Later, it took me 20 years to absorb it. But
Too funny, but yeah. I mean, so it was the White Schmear kind of grew out of that, because then he had Burning Water,
right?
And he had taken the psychedelic vomit, and he'd gotten rid of the pickguard, put a different pickguard and a rosewood neck for Burning Water, because it sounded right for that band.
Right.
And he's like, Jim, can we do something that's more like Burning Water? And so Jim kind of did a first shot of kind of doing that layers thing, and it didn't quite work. And he had a guy working for him, Paul Slagle, who they kind of started working on how to push the paint around to make it look more like waves.
Right.
That became Schmears. And then it just, good friends of mine at major companies have said, man, I wish we could do that at our big company, but they can't, because it's so complicated and in depth,
It's too bad. It's like, you got a website, right? I mean, I'm going to show the picture.
Yeah. That'll be fun. It's kind of like this one, this is a Schmear.
I got the picture comes out. How nerdy is that?
Yeah. And I'll just give this to my video editor.
There it is.
And I'm going to put it in the video. I'll put your little text where you're like, this guitar is killing me.
I do love that guitar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's my Colorado baby.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks.
Love
Appreciate
you
too.
Yeah.
You too, Rich.
Awesome.
Thank you.